Well, in neighboring Armenia, churches and humanitarian groups are getting ready for the possibility of thousands of Iranian refugees crossing the border. CBN's Operation Blessing, along with Armenian and Iranian Christians, is preparing to help anyone fleeing the violence. George Thomas reports from Armenia's border with Iran.
Inside a small church here in Armenia, the sound of Persian worship fills the room. But this congregation is different from most churches here. Each person is a refugee from Iran, men and women who fled persecution and found safety across the border. Now, many in this church are anxiously watching, worried about family members still trapped inside the country.
When I am anxious, I constantly pray and believe that it is the powerful hand of God that is upon my family.
As war engulfs their homeland, those prayers carry even more urgency.
May God truly help us, and may Iran be cleansed of the Islamic Republic and the roots of their oppression and tyranny be eradicated from my country.
Nellie became a Christian after she saw Jesus in a dream. She says her faith keeps her steady as she follows the news from home. We've taken precautions to protect her identity.
God is faithful to the promises he has made to me in my life. So because I have seen in the past that he is faithful, this is what gets me through each day.
Others here described the repression that forced them to leave Iran in the first place.
The Islamic Republic is very, very cruel, and we've endured this for 47 years, never imagining we would ever get rid of it.
Still, many feel a complicated mix of grief and hope.
It's a paradox because I'm both sad and happy at the same time. Sad because so many of my friends are being killed in the middle of their city streets, but happy because a foreign force has come to help us.
As the war intensifies, Armenian churches and humanitarian groups like Operation Blessing are getting ready for what could come next.
We see the situation, it goes to another level, and so we have to be prepared. Two of these, one of these.
Samson Murchian, a longtime Armenian pastor, is working with Operation Blessing to assemble hygiene kits, food packages, and emergency supplies in case large numbers begin crossing the border.
Orphans Promise have a long-time relationship with Pastor Sam and his church, working in the region for many years. Right now, we're activating this partnership to work with him for the potential wave of refugees coming out of Iran.
Over the weekend, Armenian Christian volunteers joined in, stacking box after box with relief supplies. Murchan has an army of volunteers ready to move at a moment's notice.
They are ready for 24/7 to help not only in here, also in the border.
Some relief boxes were delivered to the small Iranian congregation that meets in Yerevan.
For these Iranian believers, it's not just about geopolitics, it's very personal. Every single person in this room has family members today in Iran. And now they're only not just praying for the regime to change, but also for the chance to go back to their homeland.
My dream is that we can worship God in a free Iran and proclaim the true God to the people. This is the dream that all of us, the servants who were exiled from Iran, have in our heads.
Well, George Thomas is on the Armenian border with Iran. He joins us now. So, George, describe the situation there. Armenia is expecting a flood of refugees in the days ahead. How is Operation Blessing preparing to help?
Yeah, Gordon, you know these guys, brave men and women who are on the front lines around the world. They've got such tremendous experience covering these kinds of situations. Obviously, the Ukraine war comes to mind and all the great work they've done there. But look, they're talking to local partners, not just here along the Armenian-Iranian border, but also in Yerevan, connecting with Armenian churches, connecting with the Iranian diaspora who are also living here. They've met with local, the city mayor in this region of Agarak, which is right on that Armenian-Iranian border, meeting with the local officials to say, listen, once this flood, if the potential of thousands of Iranian refugees come streaming across the Armenian border, which is directly right behind me, how do we care for them? And so the authorities want to talk with Operation Blessing, talking about setting up tents, getting cooks into the region, being able to feed folks, and then finding accommodations. Gordon, let me just tell you the trek we took from Yerevan, the capital city, to come to the Iranian-Armenian border. It took about 7 hours going through some incredible mountain passes. It's a long and windy and at times dangerous journey. And so what Operation Blessing is in essence doing the prep work, talking to the local authorities, talking to the churches, the Armenian as well as Iranian congregations, making sure that they have translators, for example, once Iranians come across the border, to be able to speak to them in their own languages. This is the great work that OB has done. I've reported on them from all around the world, and they're experts at doing this.
Well, it sounds like they're going to be overwhelmed if it's that hard to get supplies to the region. That just seems like a supply train that's going to be very difficult to keep the supplies flowing to the area. Is there any possibility of airlifting to that region?
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends when you've got the Israelis and the Americans controlling the airspace all across Iran. That's a different story. But here in Armenia, I mean, I think folks are taking a wait-and-see approach. I mean, keep in mind, I was talking to Iranians just today, folks who are part of the underground church, and they said, you know, Iran, you have to keep in mind, you've got 90 million plus people. It's a massive country, and those who are, you know, whether in Tabriz or Isfahan or Qom or Tehran, you know, they've got relatives on the eastern side of the country. So you haven't seen the Israelis nor the Americans target much of the eastern side of the country. Most of the attacks have been along the Iraqi border on the western side of Iran. That's where the Israelis and the Americans have really focused on since the second week into the war. And so if you do have relatives on the eastern side, folks will end up going there. But this is a border. We just went there this morning to see if there was any foot traffic coming across. There wasn't any foot traffic. A lot of trucks going back and forth. The border is open. But again, it's all about a wait and see what happens in the days and the weeks ahead. Gordon?
Well, it looks like the hardliners have reasserted their control over the Republican Guard, over the police. The clerics are still there. The judiciary is still there. Are the Iranian Christians you're talking to anticipating further crackdowns against either protests or Christians within the country?
Yeah, in fact, just this weekend, I saw a video from Jamkaran, one of the mosques that I have been to inside of Iran. In fact, it's the same mosque that the new supreme leader was, in essence, inaugurated. I've been to that mosque. At that same mosque this weekend, a clarion call went out from one of the top IRGC commanders saying to the protesters, if you step out of your home, we will consider you equivalent to an Israeli soldier, which means that you will be taken down. The Trump administration has urged Iranians to stay home in the midst of their military campaign. But look, I think, Gordon, I've reported from Iran. I've been covering the region for 30 plus years. You very well know I've been to Iraq and Afghanistan. You know, regime change is not a walk in the park. It is bloody, it's messy, it's complicated, and in many occasions you see the potential of civil war happening. You saw that in Iraq. Taking down the IRGC, you just mentioned to Chris, it's a 1 million plus army, including the Basiji, the IRGC, and the Artesh, which is known as the regular Iranian army, close to about 400,000 people. How do you disarm all these folks? The president talks about laying down your weapons. Who do you lay down your weapons to? Who do you hand those weapons to? The Iranians I've spoken to, Gordon, know that this is going to be a very long process. It's going to take it's taken 47 years to get to this point. It's not an overnight fix. And then the other thing, you know this very, very well, because you've spoken about this, you can go after the command and control, the infrastructure. But Gordon, what do you do to the heart, the ideology that seeps in this country and in this culture? 47 years of that radical Islamic Sharia law, very archaic form of Islamic jurisprudence. How do you change that mindset? And boy, oh boy, that is something that's perhaps going to take a generation or two to change those hearts and minds.
Well, I've been doing a study of history. The last country to throw off Islamic rule of this level was Spain, and it took them 7 centuries to do it. They talk about the Reconquista, and I'm pretty sure Americans aren't ready for 7 centuries. We think a whole century is way too long. We think next day delivery. We don't think in terms of this kind of change. In talking to Armenian Christians, have they been waiting for this moment to take the gospel across the border? What are their plans? In order to change the ideology, you just can't fill it with nothing. So, you know, we've been preaching the gospel there for 20 years. What are the Armenian Christians planning?
Yeah, just to that point real quickly, Orphans Promise came here into Armenia in 2008. They run 4 centers around the country, in essence, ministering to families at risk. They've got between 50 to 300 children that come to these centers. They're taught English, they're taught the business, the computers, all kinds of life skills as well. Like you said, they've been ministering in the region. In 2016, there was a war against Azerbaijan. They were ministering to refugees. Then in 2020, another war with Azerbaijan, and then the most recent one against in the area of Nagorno-Karabakh in 2023. And it was Orphans Promise, along with Operation Blessing, being the only humanitarian organization that took 2 trucks of relief supplies past Azerbaijan forces as well as Russian forces into Nagorno-Karabakh. So it's been a long-term relationship that they've had with the Armenians. But you know, the cool thing I found out this morning, and I've traveled all around the world, I did not know the story, but several years ago, Armenian Christians from this small Christian nation, they had a heart to move to this very border region between Iran and Armenia. And I spoke to these Armenian believers. God called them to say, listen, why don't you go? This was about 6-7 years ago. Come to this border region. And God brought them here. And they have been going. In fact, I spoke to one Armenian Christian who has been across, Gordon, has been across this border more than 100 times, going back and forth. And you say, how is that possible? Well, Armenians don't need a visa to cross into Iran. Neither do Iranians need a visa to come into Armenia. And then the other thing is that there's a major road. I didn't know this. There's a major road that the Iranians and the Armenians are building that is coming from Iran right up the center of the country. So guess what? You've got hundreds of Iranians who've come into Armenia. They've set up their little small villages. And then Armenian Christians are going into these villages and sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ with them. And today they're on this border waiting for that moment where the regime falls. One ministry has over 150,000 Bibles in the Farsi language, both the Old Testament and the New Testament. Armenian Christians are getting ready, just as people around the world who've been interceding and praying for the nation of Iran all these 47 years. That's the beautiful thing. That's the good story, the hope that's happening today in this region. In the midst of all the chaos and all the bombs and all the missiles flying, folks need to be encouraged that Armenian Christians, along with others, the brothers and sisters from around the world, are positioned in a very strategic place and a strategic moment, knowing that when that eventual collapse of the regime happens, that they'll be going in ready to bring the good news of Jesus Christ to their Iranian brothers and sisters.
Well, George, thanks for that insight. Thanks for your report right there on the border between Armenia and Iran. And thank you for that word of encouragement. We'll be praying for you and praying for your safety. Thank you for being with us. If you want to be a part of this relief effort, this is not something new for CBN. You've heard Orphans Promise on the ground since 2009. Heart for Iran has been broadcasting on satellite television for 20 years now, and we want to increase all of that. In order to see this regime change, we have to change the hearts. We have to preach the gospel. We have to let them know that their whole concept about God is false, and that regime is built on a fabric of lies. How do we do that? Well, we do it with love, and love never fails. Let us continue to love on people and love very, very tangibly. If you want to be part of preaching the gospel, you can give to Heart for Iran. It's real simple. Call us, 1-800-700-7000, or you can go to cbn.com/Iran. If you want to be part of the humanitarian relief effort as refugees leave Iran and leave the potential for horrific repression from their own government, Operation Blessing is pre-staging on that border. We're helping the people that have left, and we want to help and get ready. The supply lines are iffy at best. We need to use whatever we have now to prepare for what is to come. If you want to be a part of that, it's real simple. Call us again, 1-800-700-7000. You can give by check. Just write Disaster Relief Fund in the memo line. You can text OBDR to 51555, or again, you can call us, 1-800-700-7000.